I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. All right, good morning, everybody. What's up, world? Welcome to another edition of I Mix What I Like Live. Again, I'm Jared Ball right here on Black Power Media. Good to be back with you. Going to just do a short conversation this morning. Obviously, this wasn't planned. And as we start the morning show, April 20th, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, 8 to 10 a.m. Eastern. And hopefully shortly thereafter start to expand on days and hours. These kinds of segments will go there. And I Mix What I Like Live is endeavoring to get put on Monday afternoons. But given the brief window in the schedule and the hot topic from last night, obviously I thought I would jump on and do one quick thing this morning and talk about it a little bit, and also of course get everybody excited and hyped up for what is today Dope Fridays here on Black Power Media, because at 5 o'clock Eastern time we have Lukman Nation. 7 o'clock, of course, episode 10 of The Last Dope Intellectual with Dr. Sharice Burden-Stelly, which I have just finished editing. And as soon as I wrap up here, we'll, prepare it for the premiere later on. And it is very dope. It's very dope. And again, it's the same thing. It's just that I haven't seen Lukman Nation, obviously, before it airs, because it's going to be live at 5 o'clock. And I haven't seen Renegade Culture, which is going to air at 9 o'clock Eastern. So I'm sure they're equally dope. But I have seen what you all will get to enjoy at 7 o'clock Eastern tonight, The Last Dope Intellectual, episode number 10. And it is hot. It is hot. Please do like, share, subscribe, hit that join button, become a member of the channel, help us continue to expand. We have new shows coming, new people joining the roster. The channel is expanding. We're bringing you I'm very excited. A lot is happening, and we're going to be bringing you a wide array of not only perspectives in the tradition of radical blackness, but methods of delivery. How about that? I'll leave it there. Okay. And then of course I Mix What I Like Live starting on Monday afternoon. We have a lot starting at 12 noon Eastern. A lot of guests coming through, and a lot of exciting things to talk about, and including the new report that I played a small part in about the condition of Black businesses, which is actually related to something we're going to be talking about here in just a minute. And speaking of what we're going to be talking about and the myth of Black buying power, and of course my book, The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power, I want to just take a quick second to thank everybody for supporting, interviewing, discussing, sharing, because just in the digital downloads, and I know it's per chapter, it's 7 chapters, each broken up, requiring its own separate download. But we have crossed over in the first year of its publication 60,000 downloads, and I know it's free. It is free, so I'm sure that helps drive this as well. But I think that also speaks to the interest in the work, and I think the importance of the topic. So, it doesn't matter to me how or why people did it. I think it's just great that we have well over 60,000 downloads now, and that doesn't count the hard copy sales. I don't know exactly where that is, where those numbers are, but so thank you all for that. I really appreciate it, especially given that there's only been 3 reviews of the book, oddly enough. So that shows the power of and not a lot of mainstream coverage. And not even a lot of Black press coverage, which is unfortunately part of the problem. So that's what we're going to talk about here, and I'll get to that right now. So of course, everybody by now has seen what I was late to seeing, and what I think is pretty cool. Actually, I want to thank everybody for this too, because I think it was pretty cool that a lot of people for me, obviously it's all relative. For me, a lot of people were sending me messages, tagging me on Twitter, elsewhere, saying, Puffy came out talking about buying power. You got to check Jared's book. You got to check I Mix What I Like. You got to check The Myth and Propaganda of Black Buying Power. Or just hitting me up privately, like, did you see this? Or I hope you've seen this, or I'm sure you've seen this. And which I think is pretty cool. I actually, so I appreciate that. And shout out to the people in the chat too. Josh, good morning. Sugar Booger, good morning. Deborah, Emma, thank you all for coming through. And thanks to those who are seeing this later in the replay. We appreciate you. But anyway, so I think that was pretty cool how that all worked out. And then of course, Sister No Name, thanks, shout out to her too, because she put a tweet out about it. And again, relative for me, it went pretty viral. So I appreciate that. And again, I think that again is indicative of people's interest in the work. And I think, if I may say, to strengthen my argument. So, okay. So the story breaks or comes out yesterday, however you want to talk about it. Sean Combs, of course, on Revolt TV, and that's important. His owned, Black-owned media outlet. If you love us, pay us. A letter from Sean Combs to corporate America. No longer can corporate America manipulate our culture into believing incremental progress is acceptable action. Now, I have to admit, my crew and I, we started the Hate Awards years ago in some small portion response to Puffy's historical sort of development of the don't hate, or they're hating, sort of culture or subculture, which was really a way to deflect criticism, even righteous criticism of people's behavior. So it's like anything could just be defended against by saying don't hate, or they're hating. So we were like, okay, fine, if that's the rules, then we are haters, because we are hating on that which prevents progressive movement for African people in particular, or revolutionary change. We hate on that. So we were saying, I am a proud hater of that which prevents revolution. So, and of course it's easy, it would be easy, or it's tempting even to point out the contradictions in one of the primary, certainly for my generation, one of the primary shapeshifters of hip hop in the 90s, from, potentially radical or political or thoughtful into hyper commercial, hyper simplification of sampling, hyper, conspicuous consumption. It was, Puffy represented a lot of that. So it's this idea that he would now be coming back. And then, the whole Vote or Die campaign of years ago, I mean, which is again, even looking back now, how silly was that? Vote for the corporate Democrat or die. And yet here we still are being forced or encouraged to do the same thing. So, in some ways it's easy. It would be easy to point out, just to focus on those contradictions. But what I think is what I've always tried to stay with in terms of the work and an analysis is to leave the personalities and the individual choices that people make out of it, or reduced at least in focus, and to try to pay more attention to the structural influences or what encourages these behaviors and bad choices that even some of us, myself included, make at times. So this is not just me trying to just go at Puffy. It's trying to, look at how this whole thing works, and in this case, how these myths proliferate. And then he's got a quote here from Desmond Tutu. I mean, that's heavy hitting. If you're neutral in situations of injustice, you have chosen the side of the oppressor. I mean, that's wild. Especially, and I always have to bring this up every time I hear Tutu's name, that having had the privilege of being in his presence in a special presentation discussion arranged by Dr. James Turner for the Africana Studies and Research Center at Cornell University. circa, this would have been 99, 2000. And having been in the room and watched Desmond Tutu provide his standard presentation and be challenged by a brother from one of the townships in South Africa who basically, long story short, said nothing has changed. In fact, it's worse for my community. Post-apartheid has not been a bonus. You're parading around here looking for corporate handouts. This is part of what this man's challenge to Tutu was. And, more or less you've softened the struggle. I mean, it was a wild exchange. And the young man was impassioned. I mean, he was, shaking a little bit. I think he was almost in tears. I mean, he was trying to point out that while Desmond Tutu was going around chasing, from his perspective, money and corporate support and payouts from major universities like Cornell, his people were actually, that is Black South Africans, were overall worse in condition. So again, I think there's some overlap here in terms of perspective and approach, perhaps, certainly in the way that Puffy is attempting to deploy Desmond Tutu here. So then it's the same feet that these companies used to stand with us in solidarity, the same feet they used to stand on our necks. So again, it's this is what is partially part of the frustration for me, and what makes it difficult to critique, or for, I think, many to see the flaws in the delivery of these arguments. That is because they couch these buying power arguments. They couch Black capitalism as Black power, as Black radicalism, as standing up to somebody. But what's really happening here, and I'm not going to go through the entire thing here. I'm a little bit rushed for time here. So at least we want to just get the conversation started. Obviously, we'll continue this going forward. But this is an old argument. And for those of us, anybody who knows this history has been paying attention, this has been going on for decades. Mainstream, liberal, reactionary, even so-called leadership going to corporations, using the struggle that people are in to reframe it as a radical argument in looking to redress or respond to that situation. But they're really just simply going to corporate America and saying, look, you've been beating us, you've been making us suffer, so now what we really want you to do is give us money. And by us, we mean Black ownership of media, or in this case, media companies, but Black business ownership. And this is why, I do have the link. If you go to imixwhatilike.org and you go to the recent tab, one of the most recent posts is a link to the new report that has come out that I played a small part in producing. I'm very happy about that, because the information is really important. It's not a revolutionary report. It's not a radical report. Diedrich Muhammad and others involved are going to be here, I think on the 19th. One of these next coming Mondays, to talk about it in great detail. And, we'll at least broach the topic this morning. But if you go and look at it, and in fact, I don't even know why I'm not just doing it myself, just to show you where this thing is, or to make it as easy as possible. If you go to mixwhatilike.org, where you can get the link to blackpowermedia.org, where all of our shows and stuff are housed, but under recent, a number of good things there, by the way, but this one, Black Entrepreneurship's Lethal Pre-Existing Condition, the Racial Wealth Divide During the COVID Crisis. And again, I just include some of the key takeaways, and then you can read the entire report here. From the NCRC, National Community Reinvestment Coalition, with the lead author Diedrich Asante Muhammad, Jamie Buell. Well, we'll talk about this later, but Jamie is a beast. She did a lot of really, anyway, she did a lot of the heavy lifting and the work on this. But when you read this report, I keep quoting one of my favorite statistics from it, which is that between 1992 and 2012, Actually, you got to download the whole thing. Oh, they make you sign up for. Okay, well, it's worth it. I'm trying to tell you, it's worth it. But from 1992 to 2012, what they show is or what we show is that or we point to the research from 1992 to 2012, more than 2 million jobs were created, and the national capture of the total capture of national revenue from total business sales for Black businesses went from 1% to 1.3%, and the median net wealth of the community went from of households in the Black community went from $17,700 down to $1,700. So in other words, more Black businesses coincided with almost no change in the amount of revenue generated or captured, and coincided with a massive devolution in Black wealth. And the details are why this happens are in the report, but the short answer is because Black business doesn't help business in general. Capitalism doesn't help poverty, doesn't help close gaps. Now that's my answer, my interpretation. I do not speak for all the authors of that report. And again, that report is not in any way a radical revolutionary argument, or it's in fact it is just here is just the objective base reality. How we interpret and what we think should be done about it are all require a lot of different and longer conversations. But my immediate point here is just to say that again, when those, as we'll come back to here with Puffy and others, make this kind of really old argument that Black suffering can be addressed by support for Black business, and that this will somehow close gaps in material inequality and improve relationships and all that. It's an old argument and it does not work. So here, and by the way, it's really very slick because, all right, so corporations like General Motors have exploited our culture, undermined our power, excluded Black entrepreneurs from participating in the value created by Black consumers. In 2019, brands spent $239 billion on advertising. And this is the line, actually. I mean, he has the line in here. And as I'm going to show you, this number is low. But this is actually the point for people like Puffy and for the business ownership class, for the Black business ownership classes. And I detail this history, or at least overview this history in the book. I'm not going to, belabor the point now, but this is a major part, I should say, of why the myth of buying power proliferates, because Black media owners who want to capture this revenue need to project what are fraudulent numbers about Black economic strength, which are then misinterpreted as Black economic strength, when all that they really are fraudulently contrived. I try to lay it out in the book that the numbers really come from nothing. And really what they're just trying to do is say every dollar that Black people can be shown to have earned in a year should be spent and can be, or is available for corporations spending ad revenue to compete over. But it keeps being misreported and mispresented and falsely promoted as power, as strength, as something Black people can do, or that should be respected in Black communities, as an avenue to address, again, economic or material inequality. And that's just not. But what's slick about what they also do here with Revolt, I mean, it's, obviously it's about me, it's clicking and all that other stuff, is that every one of these links goes to another Revolt TV page. So it looks like they're citing things here, but, so for instance, spent on advertising, General Motors spent on advertising, we estimate only 10 million was invested in Black-owned media. And then you click on this and it's another story, Revolt TV, about Black-owned business featured in Pharrell and Jay-Z's Entrepreneur video. So it's promoting more music and more conspicuous consumption but in other words, there's no research here. It's just more business advertising, really propaganda and promotion, and keep you here on Revolt TV. So in other words, it may look like there's all this research here, because I wanted to just to show again when they quote down here. Well, just this paragraph is important. It's disrespectful that Black-owned media companies only represent 1% of the total advertising market. And disrespectful meaning give us more of that $239 billion in advertising. It's disrespectful that distributors refuse to carry Black-owned media brands in an era where our impact and influence is undeniable. It's disrespectful that the same community that represents 14% of the population and spends over $1.4 trillion annually is still the most economically undervalued and underserved at every level. To repeat, $1.4 trillion annually, the almighty black dollar, which again, is a citation for how has corporate America finally awakened to the power of the black dollar, with another reference, an empty reference to the buying power claim. But as I show in the book, it doesn't matter. We could click through 100 of these. If they ever show a source, it will only have one, and it's a Selig Center source. And as I detail in the book, the numbers are spurious at best. They don't, and as they say in their own reports, they are based on estimates and projections and nothing real. And if you do the math, more or less, 14% of the population spend, and I try to lay this out in the book. But if you calculate based on earnings and income statements or whatever, the 1.4 trillion is just basically all the money Black people are earning in a given year. So what they're saying is, if you spend as a community every penny that you earn, that is somehow supposed to be economic strength. But again, what they're and by the way, what they're also saying here is where that money is supposed to be spent. Again, this isn't even an argument that Puffy's making that the 1.4 trillion should be spent within Black-owned businesses or used collectively, as others have, I think, incorrectly or falsely argued, used to radically reform Black business or Black communities or whatever. This is simply saying this is how much Black people are spending every year. So much of it goes to the white corporations that white corporations spend $239 billion just to advertise, and only 1% of that goes to Black-owned media companies. That is really the point here. It's not a question. This is again why things continue to be confusing for so many, because you have famous Black people with slick websites and presentations and style and swag and all this other stuff, repeating these numbers, and people and claiming and attaching them to movements of struggle, whether it's anti-apartheid South Africa or right here in Minneapolis, it's the, and then the suggestion is respect us, we're Black and we're proud, and what they're really saying is give us that money. Now, as I've showed here before, I'll show one more, not one more time, I'll, show as much as, that the money that, that ad revenue claim is, or that is low. And I just want to show you why that's low. If you go to Ad Age, and I actually recommend that people, subscribe to this. It's an industry. You don't have to pay. You can pay to get to all that stuff, but Advertising Age is the legendary trade magazine, or outlet or whatever, that covers. It's a lot. Again, it's not radical. It's just showing you how people, corporations. And I haven't seen 2020's last year's yet. But just off the one before, the projection for 2019 was that overall we're closer to 500 billion in all media marketing service spending in 1 year. The money Puffy was talking about, I know it was more than this, but is more closely about targeting, talking about the top, just the top 200 national advertisers are spending upwards of 163. It's probably closer, to the 200 plus billion that Puffy was looking for. But overall, we're at this point, I'm sure, well over 500 billion in overall spending, and that's what Black owners of media outlets want. That's what they want. So there's another piece to this, and I'm only hesitating because I'm not honestly I'm not entirely sure principally what because I said this before when talking about Killer Mike, that it's almost always inappropriate to talk publicly about private conversations. But there's something false about how he went on to present that private conversation publicly, and then refusing to talk with me publicly puts me in a difficult position. But I do think it's appropriate that I feel, anyway, I have to, this one point, I'll say it this way. When I asked Killer Mike, I made the point to Killer Mike that you went public with Candace Owens and T.I. and shared a lot of bad information economically. I'm not, everything else is, debatable, whatever. But the economic information, I said was incorrect. Your approach to Black business and Black capitalism was incorrect. So, but if you went public with them, why won't you just come public with me to have this same conversation? And he said, well, because Puffy paid him an amount of money that is, I would think, significant. I want to say it's well over half of my annual salary, at least that. So and I bring that up to say, and I think it's important to bring that up to say that it's Puffy using his media outlet to pay or to pay for and promote bad economics and bad analysis. And in this case, the issue of buying power, specifically because as a Black capitalist, as a Black business owner, as a Black media owner, he wants to promote a situation where Black inequality is largely due to either the failures of Black people with financial literacy, or in this case, the failure of corporate America to step up and do more about what it needs to do to help. But it's never an issue, of course, of capitalism itself or the exploitative nature or relationship that Black people continue to have to the economy. That part is not up for discussion. But it's the projection of this bad analysis and this bad economic research or perspective or interpretation that continues to confuse audiences, that continues to confuse people in the community as to what is that real relationship and what can be done about it. So what ultimately I'm just trying to discuss here today a little bit is how broadly speaking, broader myths of the social relationship, the material condition of Black people, the context is distorted, and in particular, how the buying power myth just continues to permeate and confuse and confound. Yeah. Because it's largely a projection of the Black business class, and unfortunately involves the Black commercial press community. in falsely reporting this economic reality and what can be done about it. And of course, wanting to promote the idea that Black business and business in general, all of whom advertise with these media outlets and support Black business in general, need to hear. I mean, if I'm spending money on ads and you want me to spend in your media, I need to believe that your audience can afford my product. So of course you want to help convey that. And that's what I try to show in the book and have tried to show in all these discussions subsequently. And even for years before that, that's a lot of why we're where we are with all of this. So again, it's not a personal thing about Puffy. It's more about understanding his relationship to the economy and what his interests are and how they do not dovetail with the majority of us, and why this leads to so much of the confusion and et cetera and so forth. So, all right, I'm going to leave it there. Unfortunately, got to wrap up and move on. I don't have enough time to even engage with the chat as much as I would like to today, but please continue the conversation beyond this, and please come back to Black Power Media all day, where I'm sure there's a whole bunch of stuff you haven't seen or been caught up to, because there's so much great content coming all the time. And then, of course, 5 o'clock Eastern, Luke Ma Nation goes live right here on the channel. Episode 10 of the last Dope Intellectual at 7 o'clock Eastern, and then 9 o'clock Eastern, Renegade Culture. So anyway, we got, as it said, Dope Fridays here at Black Power Media. Thanks. Oh, I didn't mean to do that, but this frustrating part is that people who support your work or had you on their show promote your book still use spending power. Yeah, well, yeah, sorry, but yeah, it is. There's a lot of unfortunates related to that, but anyway, but the book is still there. You can get it for free, and then you can, help determine all of this on your own and help us, puncture some of these mythological bubbles. Anyway, thanks everybody for coming through. Even on such short notice, we got a pretty good crowd for us. Not enough likes. A whole bunch of you watching and not liking. So hit the like button, hit the join button, and subscribe and all of that, and come on back later on, and we'll continue this conversation, of course, obviously here on this channel and on this show. So thanks for joining us for another edition of I Mix What I Like Live. Again, I'm Jared Ball. This is Black Power Media, and of course, as Fred Hampton used to say, to you we say peace if you're willing to fight for it. So peace, everybody. Catch you next time. Thanks again.
I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like. I mix what I like, what I like, what I like, what I like.